I think that the most important thing and what is failing right now is that we are not helping women. We are patronizing them, patronizing women, because on social media, in the movies and out there, and in conversations, even with women who are mothers, we don't want to scare them. And because we don't want to scare them, we encourage this rose-tinted view of motherhood. And no, I don't believe in scaring women, but I believe in educating them.
Yeah.
Women are incredible. We can take it.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to strike a better balance of educating women in preparing them for what's to come, so they don't feel so blindsided.
Absolutely.
Some women I meet with, they're so angry. How come no one told me? My mother, my aunt, my best friend who already has teenagers. How come no one told me it could be this hard?
Yeah.
And they're angry at the community of women and others for not preparing them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of the prenatal, antenatal classes, they're missing that component of it's not exactly grounded in reality.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I think a lot of the prenatal classes focus so much on the process of birth. And sometimes they don't even go into it fully as well. Sometimes that's rose-tinted as well. But there's often very little about what comes next. And yeah, I agree. For a lot of women, it can come as a real shock.
The preparation they get is basically focusing on the birth experience.
Exactly.
All those lessons focusing on the birth experience. And I do think birth education is important. It can help a woman feel empowered and what my options are and how do I get the right team to support me with that, incredible, challenging event. But we're not talking about identity changes. We're not talking about the fact that having a baby is like throwing a grenade into a marriage for many people.
Yeah.
We are failing women by not preparing them in that way.
Yeah.
And when you're pregnant, you're so focused on giving birth. And then you realize when you bring your baby home, oh my goodness, this is forever.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
And I just remember my first daughter just leaving the hospital, and I could not believe they were going to let me go home with a brand new, vulnerable human being that I was responsible for. And what now?
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to know a lot of things. And it really challenged a lot of my assumptions.
Yeah.
And it has been an incredibly humbling experience.
Well,
and it still is.
And I think for all mothers, really, particularly when you have that second child, it's a very humbling experience. Okay. So what would you therefore then be telling women? So if you, and I think you probably do see women antenatally, what are you telling them to prepare them? What do they need to know?
So I love it. I am seeing more of these cases when the women come preemptively, prophylactically. Let's just sit down. I want to be prepared for the psychological, emotional, all of those changes.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So it is happening.
Okay.
I have a few of those. They might be listening to us right now. And so I want to explore with them their past, what they're bringing into motherhood. Sometimes adverse experiences in childhood can get re-triggered when you become a mother, even if you've done quite a bit of therapy, because it's very different being at peace with your past as an adult, but becoming a mother, that role, and then loving this baby so much can have past experiences come out of the woodwork. We call those ghosts in the nursery. So we take care of the past, what's brought them here, what can impact their motherhood experience. I talk about conception, how that went, if there are any losses. We talk about the pregnancy itself, how to cope and manage better. And then I normally get the partners. I invite the partners to come in, bulletproof their relationship. There's only so much we can do, but at least talk about communication and some simple strategies to be on the same page. And then birth and postpartum. And we don't initially focus too much on the going back to work, but I do point out some of the challenges that can come their way without frightening them.
Okay.
I worry more about the women who show up and are so fused with the idea that my birth is going to be amazing. I feel like, I've always wanted to have a baby. I think this is going to come quite naturally. Oh, yes, I'm just going to breastfeed. Yes, my sister breastfed, no issues. So it will be fine. Yeah. Those are the women that I worry about, and I will challenge their expectations.
Yeah, just so that they have a more balanced view of what it could be like.
More grounded in reality, for sure.
Absolutely.
It's a fine line to balance that with information versus not
tell me, when you meet with the husbands, when you do that session with the husbands, do you ever, you talked about bulletproofing relationship, do you ever go, oh my goodness, this is not going to end well?
Yes.
You have to be honest. You must see some couples where you think,
so I can see this might present some challenges to your relationship. Let's start working together now.
Yeah.
And I think it might be a good idea for you to see my colleague who specializes in couples counseling.
Yeah.
To have that support and to have that neutral space to help you have a really good adjustment as a family.
Yeah.
Because we tend to make assumptions of each other. Everyone is tired, sleep deprived. You can get in competition with each other as to who slept more and who's doing more. So I think it might be a good idea to just have that support from a couples therapist.
Yeah. What advice do you have for couples who are about to have a baby, their first baby? Where do you see it going wrong, as it were? And what are some of the kind of easy things that you might be able to do to try and prevent that if possible?
I think one of the biggest issues is making assumptions of your partner. And even if your partner right now, before you have a baby, is incredibly supportive, you feel like you have an equal partnership and they're loving and they're there for you, they have your back. But the arrival of the baby can shift all of those dynamics. And some people find themselves acting like their mothers and their fathers. And then suddenly you're not married to your partner anymore. You can see your father-in-law in your husband, which can present some issues. So I don't want anyone to be blindsided. So articulating expectations, really challenging assumptions, and then very practically, okay, have you thought about who's doing the night wakings and the feedings? What kind of leave do you have? How do you want to manage this leave? And so if one person's really struggling, how do you want to handle that and be there for each other? How can you make sure that you are like comrades at war in the trenches together, having each other's back rather than adversarial? The last thing we want is for the two of you to be adversarial.
This is so great. I mean, before people get married, I don't know whether you had to do it, but we got married in a church and we had to have like a marriage kind of counseling session. Did you have to have that?
I had a Catholic.
So did we.
Okay.
So you've got to kind of go in and just say, say where you align, where you don't line. And actually, I've never thought about it for new parents, but this is so clever that you come in and you actually consciously think about what is going to happen when you've got that baby.
You've got to go back to that contract, that agreement, those promises, because I think in some ways you get to know your partner at a deeper level, a real level, because both of you will be pushed to your limit.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes a lot of sense that you have pre-parenting counseling to prepare you to revisit that agreement and what that means.
Yeah.
And what the understanding is between the two partners.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are you telling women about how they might feel? So we've talked about the fact that woman who's come in going, I'm going to have a great birth, my body was made for this, is a little bit worrying. We want her to be a bit more realistic. But what about when she starts saying things like, I can't wait for that rush of love I'm going to get. This is going to be the greatest job, that I was made for this. I'm just so grateful to have this baby. All of those types of things, which actually in reality, a lot of times there are conflicting emotions.
Ambivalence. Motherhood equals ambivalence. So I'll go, what a wonderful way to start with that mindset. I love it.
Yeah.
And I agree, there's so many things to look forward to, and that oxytocin, how promotes bonding, and that love is like nothing you've ever felt before. Yes. And at the same time, some of my clients, it can take them days, weeks, and sometimes months to feel that connection. And then I will tell them a story about my husband, and I will say, it was not love at first sight. And it took quite a few dates and spending time together for that love to evolve.
And that's okay.
It's a relationship. And so in relationships, your baby's a stranger. You're going to meet your baby for the first time. Yes, some women fall in love at first sight. But for many women, I would say majority of women, it takes time. And there are a lot of factors and variables that can impact that. If you have a trickier birth experience, if, baby needs a little bit of extra care post-delivery, those things can get in the way. So I really want you to have an open mind, trusting that eventually that bond will come. But for many women, it's not instantaneous.
Yeah.
So creating psychological flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Psychological flexibility would be the most important ingredient from my perspective in adjusting to motherhood.
Okay.
And so I will challenge some of those assumptions about the birth itself, about bonding with baby, about their partners, about the way they're going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I had my baby, and I did love her very much, almost straight away, not straight away because I had a very long delivery. So I was in London, cup of tea, bit of toast, and then give me the baby. And we started bonding then because I was very tired. I had moments with my baby of being so bored, of sitting on the floor, loving her very much, and being bored out of my mind and thinking, if I have to sing Baba Black Sheep one more time, I can't do this. And so finding ways to cope with that. But not very popular negative emotion, I would say that is quite common for mothers, is anger.
Right.
Irritability, frustration, anger, and rage.
Mm-hmm.
And so for many new mothers, postpartum rage is the way that postpartum depression manifests.
Mm-hmm.
But for most of them, they are just exhausted, sleep deprived. And then baby is waking them up for the 5th time in the night. The intensity of that emotion can feel quite scary. Is anyone preparing you for that? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think we talk about it.
We don't talk about it.
No.
And actually being pushed to your limits of anger can be a very common one for both mothers and fathers and other key caregivers as well. So there are quite a few emotions that no one is preparing you for, which can feel frightening. Another one, and I think you spoke to Dr. Kamini about this, around intrusive thoughts.
Absolutely.
No one's going to a coffee play date with other mothers and going, oh my goodness, guess what kind of intrusive thought I had? I thought, I was going to push my baby, into the road to be hit by a car. No one discloses that.
When I had my 3rd child, I've got quite a gap between my number 2 and number 3. And when my older 2, who wanted to be involved, it was super sweet. They would want to hold him, which of course I wanted to encourage, but I used to get these horrible flashbacks or visions of my older children falling and slipping, and then he would hit his head and get brain damage, and then he would die, and then the impact that would have on my older children, all in my daughter would be carrying the baby, all in 5 seconds I'd be thinking all of this, and then I'd be also thinking, no, don't overreact, because you're going to upset her. You're going to create anxiety in her. And, all of this is going through your mind in those moments. It's a lot.
It's a lot. But you have the insight and the self-awareness to be able to recognize that content. If you don't have that level of insight, it feels like it's real. And you get so freaked out by it. And so intrusive thoughts can be bad things happening. That's the perfect, very common example. Yeah. But sometimes it's scary stuff, like doing bad things to baby. Yeah. And it freaks you out. But we are not telling women how common this is. Yeah. And if they knew how common this is, they wouldn't be freaking out so much. They wouldn't be feeling so guilty and shameful. Yes. And they would develop a healthier relationship with those intrusive thoughts. So they will lose their power over you.
Yes, I agree that knowing that actually it was just my brain's response to having a baby was very powerful, because I could just kind of bat them away, even though it was very visceral, that feeling. I could bat them away. But also I think because it wasn't me doing something, it wasn't a thought about me doing something to my baby to harm him. It was, an accident. I think when it is about you, it's completely different.
It is different. It's scarier.
Yes.
And women carry quite a bit of shame, and they're afraid of disclosing that to anyone, and especially health professionals. They're terrified the baby's going to be taken away. What if I act on this? What does it say about me? I'm a terrible person. I'm the worst mother. Yeah. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation, because the mothers who are listening to us can have that reassurance and say, you don't have to just be stuck with that either. You can get professional support to work through that. Yes. So they reduce.
But the main message is that intrusive thoughts
so common.
Exactly.
So common.
So common, and can be part of a normal, sorry, I know you don't like the word normal, a healthy adjustment, or a common adjustment to motherhood.
The content of this podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace the doctor-patient relationship, nor does it constitute personalised medical advice. If you are affected by any of the topics discussed, please speak to your doctor or a qualified healthcare professional.